Hey everyone, and welcome to Visual Depicts Med. Here on the channel, our whole goal is to take really complex medical topics and, well, make them simple. We use custom animations to break down everything that's happening inside the human body. So whether you're a med student trying to ace your exams or just curious, you can actually see how it all works.
So today, we are venturing into one of the most incredible places in the universe, the human brain. I mean, just think about it. It's packed with nearly 90 billion neurons. That is an astronomical number. But here's the real question. With all those billions of cells packed in there, how do they actually talk to each other? How does a single thought or memory flash across that network? Well, the secret lies in these tiny, absolutely essential structures called synapses. You can think of them as the brain's microscopic communication hubs. They're the little bridges that connect everything together. And today, we are going to explore exactly how they work, step by step.
Here's what we've got on tap for today. We'll start with the fundamentals, what a synapse even is, then we'll look at the mind-boggling numbers involved. After that, we'll dive into all the different types of synapses, see why this matters in medicine, and then we'll wrap it all up with a quick recap and a quiz to make sure it all sticks. So, let's get started.
Okay, so first things first. What in the world is a synapse? It's the fundamental unit of communication in our brain.
Now that's the textbook definition, and it's a good one, but let's make it simpler. A synapse is basically the handoff point. It's where one neuron passes a signal along to the next one, kind of like a baton in a high-speed relay race that's happening inside your head at this very moment.
All right, let's zoom way in and look at the anatomy of a chemical synapse, which is the most common type. First, over here, we have the axon terminal of the neuron that's sending the signal. And see all those little bubbles inside? Those are called synaptic vesicles. They're like tiny packages, and inside each one is a chemical message. And of course, you see these guys, the mitochondria. They're the powerhouses, churning out all the energy needed for this to happen over and over again. So really, when you boil it all down, there are three key players in this whole setup. You've got the presynaptic neuron, that's the sender. Then you have the postsynaptic neuron, that's the receiver, just waiting for the message. And in between them, you have this incredibly small gap called the synaptic cleft. It's only about 20 to 40 nanometers wide, but it's a massive hurdle the signal has to cross. So how does that signal make the jump? Well, this is where it gets really cool. Let's see it in action. Okay, so first, an electrical signal called an action potential comes speeding down the axon. When it reaches the end, that jolt of electricity pops open these special calcium channels. Calcium ions then rush into the cell. This flood of calcium is the trigger that tells all those synaptic vesicles to move to the edge and release their contents. And those contents are chemical messengers called neurotransmitters. They spill out into the synaptic cleft, float across that tiny gap, and then they lock into specialized receptors on the other side, just like a key fitting into a lock. This unlocks channels on the receiving neuron, letting ions flow in, and voila! The message has been passed, converting from an electrical signal to a chemical one, and then back to electrical. Now that process itself is pretty incredible, right? But what's truly going to blow your mind is the sheer scale of it all. The numbers we're about to look at are what give the human brain its unbelievable power. Just take a look at this number. That's 240 trillion. That's the estimated number of synapses just in the human cerebral cortex. I mean, it's a number so big, it's hard to even wrap your head around. Think of it this way. That's over 30,000 synapses for every single person currently living on planet Earth. It's this density that allows for all the complexities of being human. And what's really fascinating is when you compare our brains to others. If you look at a mouse versus a human, it's not just about how many neurons we can pack into a space. The real story is the connectivity. A single neuron in the human brain can have an average of 15,000 connections, 15,000 synapses with other neurons. It's this incredibly complex, interwoven web that truly sets us apart. Okay, but here's the thing. Not all of those trillions of synapses are identical. In fact, they're incredibly diverse. So to make sense of it all, neuroscientists have come up with a few handy ways to classify them. We can sort them into three main buckets. First, we can look at their anatomy. Basically, what part of neuron A is connecting to what part of neuron B. Second, we can classify them by function, how they're sending the signal. And third, we can group them by their action. What's the end result? Are they telling the next neuron to go or to stop? So let's start with anatomy. This is all about the point of contact. If the axon from one neuron connects to the dendrite of another, we call that axodendritic. That's the most common kind you'll see. If it connects directly to the cell body, or soma, it's called axosomatic. And if an axon makes a connection with another axon, that's called axoaxonic, which is a clever way to sort of fine-tune the signal before it's even sent. Now, I know that can be a bit of a mouthful, especially for exams, so here's a super easy mnemonic to help you remember. Just think that an axon's message can be SAD. It can connect to a soma, another axon, or a dendrite. S-A-D. Simple, right?
Next up, let's classify by function, or how the signal gets passed along. Take a look at these two. On the left, you've got an electrical synapse, and on the right is the chemical synapse we've been looking at. You can spot the biggest difference right away, can't you? The electrical one has a direct physical bridge between the two cells, while the chemical one has that gap we talked about.
Let's put them head to head. Electrical synapses are built for pure speed. Because there's a direct connection, the signal is almost instant, and it can even go in both directions. You find these where you need perfect timing, like in your heart muscle. Chemical synapses, on the other hand, are a bit slower, but they are way more versatile. Because they use those chemical messengers, the signal can be tweaked and modified in all sorts of complex ways, and it only goes in one direction.
And that brings us to our last classification, by action. What does the synapse actually tell the next neuron to do? Well, it can either be a go signal or a stop signal. An excitatory synapse says go. It gets the receiving neuron all fired up and brings it closer to sending its own signal. In contrast, an inhibitory synapse says stop. It calms the receiving neuron down, making it less likely to fire. And it's the constant, beautiful balance between all these go and stop signals that allows our brains to think and function.
So you might be wondering, why do we need to know all of this microscopic detail? Well, because when this beautiful, intricate system of communication goes wrong, the impact on a person's health can be absolutely devastating.
Diseases caused by problems with synapses are called synaptopathies. Think about a condition like Alzheimer's disease. One of its defining features is a massive loss of synapses in the parts of the brain responsible for memory. This breakdown in communication is directly linked to the cognitive decline we see. Or take a psychiatric disorder like schizophrenia. A lot of research points to an imbalance in those go and stop signals we just talked about. So understanding the synapse is absolutely fundamental to finding treatments for these kinds of conditions.
Whew, okay, I know that was a lot to take in. So here is your quick and dirty recap table. This is the perfect slide to screenshot for your study notes. It lays out the three main ways we classify synapses: anatomical by where they connect, functional by how they send the signal, and by action, based on their effect. It's your perfect cheat sheet. All right, now that we've covered the A to Z of synapses, from their structure to what happens when they go wrong, let's see how much you've remembered. It's time for a quick 5-question quiz to lock in everything we learned.
Okay, let's do this. Question 1. What is the tiny gap between the presynaptic and postsynaptic neuron called? Is it A, axon terminal, B, synaptic cleft, C, dendritic spine, or D, gap junction? I'll give you a second. The answer is B, synaptic cleft. All right, question 2. A synapse connecting an axon to a cell body or soma is called A, axodendritic, B, axoaxonic, C, axosomatic, or D, somatodendritic. The correct answer is C, axosomatic. Remember our SAD mnemonic? S is for soma. Question 3. Which type of synapse allows for faster, bidirectional signal transmission? Is it A, chemical, B, excitatory, C, inhibitory, or D, electrical? And that would be D, electrical. That direct connection makes it super fast. Question 4. An inhibitory synapse makes the postsynaptic neuron A, more likely to fire, B, less likely to fire, C, fire faster, or D, fire slower. The answer here is B, less likely to fire. Inhibitory means stop. Okay, last one. Question 5. Which neurotransmitter is the brain's main excitatory or go signal? Is it A, GABA, B, glycine, C, glutamate, or D, dopamine? The big one is C, glutamate.
You guys did an awesome job. And that's our deep dive into the synapse. We really hope this explainer helped make sense of how these amazing little structures power everything our brains can do. If you found this helpful, it would mean the world to us if you'd hit that like button, subscribe, and maybe drop a comment below letting us know what topic you would like to see us animate next.